5 Live Formula One.
Hello, welcome to your Chequered Flag podcast post-Singapore after an intense night under the lights at Marina Bay. George Russell took a magnificent win for Mercedes, comfortably ahead of Max Verstappen, who held off late pressure from Lando Norris's McLaren, despite Norris having a lap one clash with teammate Oscar Piastri. Despite the contact, McLaren still seal the Constructors' Championship, but there'll be some tense conversations in Papaya tonight. We're going to unpack all of the drama. It's Harry Benjamin with you, and alongside me is racing driver Sam Bird. An intense night, a hot night, Sam Bird, and I think we've got to get straight to it and talk McLaren. First of all, let's do the good side. 10 times Constructors' World Champions. I mean, when you look at where they were just in 2023 and times before that, they're struggling just not to finish last in the Constructors. Magnificent.
Beginning of 2023, going to Bahrain, beginning of the season, they didn't think that they could even finish races with the brakes that they had on the car. Aerodynamically, the car was really flawed. And they've worked so well since then, obviously bringing home the Constructors' Championship last year and doing it back-to-back. It's one thing doing it once, Harry. It's even harder doing it the second year, but the way that they've worked throughout this year, the amount of 1-2s they've had, they've been so consistent, and they've sewn this up with 6 races remaining in the championship. It's absolutely remarkable what the team from Woking have been able to deliver.
It actually equals the record that Red Bull did it in as well. But you even look back to, we talk about the on-track action a lot, but there were times where McLaren were struggling to secure sponsors for their car. They had a bare car. They went through some rough engine partnerships as well. Let's not forget those barren Honda years. But the turnaround has been remarkable. They've got 2 top-rate drivers, but also I think a word has to be said for the people that are steering the ship as well. The CEO, Zach Brown, and the team principal, Andrea Stella. 2 very different roles, but they complement each other really well.
They complement each other so well. Andrea Stella is so good at leading the engineers and the mechanics and that team trackside. And Zach Brown figureheads the company so well. Since they've both come on board, McLaren have flourished. I know Zach was there when it was the Honda days and it was a little bit more difficult back then, but he had a vision of creating a force again, and Zach has absolutely delivered his promise that he would bring McLaren back to the front of the grid.
I mean, it's sensational work from them, and that is showcased. They had all of the mechanics up on the podium after the race celebrating their win, because Formula One, believe it or not, is a team game, and McLaren have had to pull everyone in each direction to get everything together, not only the people on site but also back at the factory.
Yeah, I was going to bring you up on that point. It's not just the mechanics that you see here wearing papaya in Singapore that were on that podium tonight. It's the 970 people that are left back in Woking, working every single day of the year, working day and night to make sure those 2 race cars are in the best shape possible, to make sure that those 2 race cars get the updates that are required and necessary to stay at the front of the grid.
Well, they would have preferred to have taken the title without having any kind of negative to talk about too. That incident on the exit of Turn 3 on lap 1 between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. We're going to get stuck into that. But first, let's hear from the team principal of McLaren, Andrea Stella. He's speaking with Jenny Gao.
What an achievement. Is it sinking in? You've just done the champagne, the team photo. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling obviously very happy, very proud of having achieved, this result, which is a contribution to the legacy of McLaren. And this is, makes me humble in a way that we are part of this legacy. And the second after, I feel like I want to share this with the team. So it was important that there was the champagne here for the entire team trackside. And then I look forward to sharing the same with the team factory side. It's a team effort. It's a people effort. It's thanks to the men and women at McLaren. If we are where we are, they decided to be part of this journey. They decided to raise the game when we were almost last. in 2023 and create something that has become historic. So I hope everyone is enjoying this moment. It doesn't happen so often, so let's enjoy it. Likewise, I hope all the Papaya fans will be enjoying this moment, and I want to thank them all for their support and their contribution.
It feels like you've achieved almost the impossible from turning this team around with everybody at Woking from a team that couldn't win, let alone challenge for a championship, and now 2 on the bounce.
Well, obviously it wasn't impossible because we made it real. It definitely looked challenging, at the start of 2023. But I have personally enjoyed the process. I've enjoyed the journey, and I've enjoyed the journey because I've been together with people that were enjoying the journey. They were committed, and we never looked at the final destination. We almost looked at one day at a time, every day a little bit of a brick added to the construction. We keep building. That's what we said, I think, the most internally. We just keep building and believe. So it was enjoyable itself, and obviously this is a culmination when you have a victory. But what we have to do is just keep enjoying, because there's a lot to build and a lot to go through in this final part of the season, and to make sure that we can confirm ourselves in 2026 across a significant change of technical regulations.
Yeah, it's still game on, isn't it, for next year? But congratulations. Everyone is so delighted for you. Well done.
Thank you very much.
You can just hear what this means, taking number 10, their 10th Constructors' World Championship for McLaren, a mighty rise over the last few years, and on the cusp of a new era as well of Formula One. This is really going to give them a huge amount of momentum. They came into this season as champions, and they got a run on the entire rest of the field straight out of the blocks, and that is credit to the people that run that team and work day in, day out to keep those cars racing on the track. However, Sam Bird, a part of a team are 2 drivers who can sometimes prove a little bit pesky at times, and especially when you've got 2 drivers, 2 top-rate drivers, who are both going for their first World Championship. All season long, we've been saying almost how remarkable it is that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri haven't yet had a proper bust-up on track, or even their kind of friendship hasn't really turned sour off the track either. But in Singapore this evening, in turn 3 on lap 1, they came together. Lando Norris collided with Oscar Piastri and picked up a bit of damage as a result. Piastri was not happy about the situation there. He wasn't unhappy that Norris had gone into him, because these things happen. However, he wasn't happy that McLaren were not going to review that situation during the race, perhaps indicating he thought that was unfair and would have preferred a swap of positions on track, very much like we saw in Monza when we had a slow pit stop for Norris. What did you make of all that?
I have watched this, let's call it an incident, back probably 30 times on our monitors, time and time again, and I keep on thinking that there's not an awful lot to talk about. I hate to say, I feel like we're going to hype this up, but right, both of the McLarens get a reasonable start. Lando then has a slightly better line, less compromised line through turn 1. He then chooses to go around the outside of turn 2 compared to Oscar, who's right on the curb on the inside of 2. But then that gives Lando the opportunity to go down the inside into turn 3. Bearing in mind, before the start of the race, the track was damp. So there were patches of the racetrack that were still slightly slippery, and that's washed away a lot of the rubber. So the track was not in its best, most prime condition. Oscar did leave Lando a lot of racing room. But what Lando didn't expect was for Max just to check up a little bit more than we expected him to. At the apex of turn 3, Lando has actually hit slightly the back of Max Verstappen's car, damaged his front wing. In doing so, sort of bounced and skidded sideways into the path of Oscar Piastri. He hasn't wanted to make contact with Oscar. There was no malice in it at all. It was actually Lando just losing a little bit of grip laterally, which forced him into Max and then obviously into Oscar. I don't think that there's anything more in this.
So you don't think Oscar Piastri has a right to feel aggrieved that the fact McLaren didn't want to almost help him out and reverse almost the scenario of what occurred during the race, when we talk so much about how McLaren go racing with their drivers and they are the spirit of fairness?
Yeah, but if a move's made and it might have been a harsh move because there was a little bit of argy-bargy there that Lando didn't even mean to do, how can you reverse that? I don't think there was any need to. In the case of Hungary last season and in the case of Monza this year, they were strategic pit stop issues that they've then reversed the order because of those. I can kind of understand those ones. This one, there was no need to reverse it.
No, there wasn't. And that glimpse into McLaren's ethos of fairness was sort of demonstrated once again further than that when we came to the first pit stops. And Piastri was actually under pressure from Charles Leclerc, and they wanted to box him to cover off the Ferrari to make sure they stayed out ahead of him. Lando Norris ahead and up the road at that time. They asked Lando, are you okay if we box Oscar before you? To which he said no. So they are still sort of operating in that fashion, which I think is interesting. And I wonder, now that the team's championship is sewn up, is it gloves off for the drivers?
I was thinking this earlier as well. I was thinking, are we going to get a little bit more spicy now between the McLaren two? Part of me thinks, or wants to say yes. Part of me thinks that that's not what Andrea Stella would want. I don't think Andrea Stella wants these two to become enemies. He likes the harmony within the team right now, and going forwards the team needs that harmony to stay. Both of these drivers are employed for the long term at McLaren. The last thing you want is to have a fallout now when you know you've got at least 2 to 3 more years with these two working together.
Can that happen though? I mean, we look at the most recent sort of within the same team, you look at Mercedes, right? And you look at Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg and how intense that fight got, the mind games that were being played almost every single race between the both of them, and it became a really sour atmosphere for not only the drivers but almost the two sides of the garage as well, for the mechanics and the engineers suddenly facing off against each other. And we're looking now at two McLaren drivers who have a chance to take their first ever Formula One World Championship. They may not be able to next year. We've got a new regulation set. This could be their one chance in the near future to take it. And I just think, no matter what Andrea Stella might want, what we've seen from Oscar Piastri today and the tone of voice he's displayed on his team radio, I know in the heat of the moment things happen, but it's the first time we've seen and heard Piastri in that demeanour, that cool, calm demeanour kind of shift. And after that incident, I felt like he was frazzled and he wasn't keeping his head down. And I wonder if that's just going to get more and more between the both of them, not just on Piastri's side.
Yeah, but I think he'll be reflective after this race and realise, look, damage limitation, I've come fourth, Lando's come third, so I've only lost out 3 World Championship points to my nearest rival. It could have been worse. So all things considered, it wasn't a bad day at the office. Yeah, he'll be disappointed with that turn 3 incident. I think when he reviews it, I think he might calm down a little bit and realise, look, Lando's car was sliding around. He didn't mean to. It's not like he forced me wide deliberately. He was correcting an oversteer. So yeah, I'm sure that when they get back to both headquarters and doing a debrief, that'll happen soon this evening.
Will it happen despite the partying?
Yeah, they're professional. Of course they'll have a debrief.
But, I mean, you've represented McLaren over the last couple of years. You actually, have you played golf with Oscar and Lando?
Play golf with Lando. Play golf with Zach a lot.
And you know the characters of this team. So with that in mind, and I'm presuming that's what's informed what you've said so far. But do you think it will be all fair game now until the end of the year between those two, Piastri and Norris?
Yeah, I want to say yes.
Yeah,
I want to say yes.
If you're one of those drivers, the one thing that sometimes is beyond your control, right, is a pit stop. And we've seen slow pit stops from McLaren. majority have actually come on Lando Norris's car so far, and I think that is pure coincidence, but there's clearly an issue with their pit stops. We saw it today.
Well, when you say there's clearly an issue, they've been the fastest guys throughout the year.
Not on average.
Are they not?
No, because when you look at the average result, they dramatically fall off because they've sometimes had slow pit stops. And I was looking at some of the stats. Lando Norris has suffered 6 of the 7 slowest stops from McLaren this year. Monza, Baku, Silverstone and Zandvoort. Today, it happened to Oscar Piastri. That was over 5 seconds he was stopped for. We don't know the exact problem yet, but if you're one of the McLaren drivers, are you now making a push to the mechanics, the engineers, to really get to the problem of maybe it's a logistical error or some sort of mechanical failure that's going on there? Is that your point of focus?
Singapore is extremely intense for all of the pit crew. It's hot, it's humid, and also because of the heat and the humidity, all of the components around the car are normally stressed and hot enough anyway. With that added heat, it can be very difficult to do a perfect pit stop. So I don't think here is perfectly representative of doing like a 1.8 or a 1.9 second pit stop. I think 2.2 to 2.4 is perfectly fine in and around Singapore. But you're right, though, when it's 5 or 6 seconds, and if they're doing that on a regular basis, the team would have to look at that. McLaren recently, I thought, had been pretty strong with pit stops. So they hold the current world record for fastest ever pit stop. I didn't actually know that they'd had so many little difficult ones throughout the year.
So just to give some context, that pit stop times over the last 6 races for Norris averaging at about 3.9 seconds, Piastri 2.6. So look, they are quick, but they could be quicker when you look at the likes of Leclerc in the Ferrari, who are doing 2.3, Hamilton's doing 2.4. So that's almost a second at times they're finding on average. So it's just something to bear in mind. I'll tell you what, we've waffled on and off. I think we need to see and hear from some of the drivers and those 2 McLaren drivers. Let's hear from the man who finished in 3rd place, Lando Norris.
Lando, congratulations for the team. It's a team that you've been with ever since you started in F1.
Yeah.
And at that time, could you have even thought it was, or dreamed it was possible to win 2 world titles with the team that you started out with?
Yeah. I mean, it was so far away. It was definitely not like a realistic dream, you know. Our first goal was just let's try and get a little bit competitive and let's have a car that we can be there or thereabouts with. And, we had quite a quick turn over the last 3 years to go from almost at the back to dominating like we did this year. So, in a period of time when things are harder to make these differences than ever, there are more regulations, more caps, more this and that to stop domination. The team achieved exactly that this year. So, no rules or caps stop McLaren this year, and that's a cool thing. It's a cool thing to say, So, the team are achieving their dream every year, which is winning the constructors. So I'm very proud. It's an amazing job that they're doing to give us the car we've had this year to get the wins and the podiums and be as quick as we've done in certain races. This is unbelievable from them. So I also have to give a big thanks to them as much as I'm part of it, because they make my life much easier at times and in giving me such a quick car. So well done to all the boys and girls.
I think the celebrations tonight are going to be long, heavy, hard, but it will be a celebration.
We'll see. They need to celebrate, It's still a long season and we can't tire ourselves out too. I don't want to be the party pooper, but, we still got a season to finish, and we can have a few glasses I won't. I'll throw up. But
don't do that.
If the guys have a few glasses later, is fine, and enjoy themselves tonight in Abu Dhabi at the end of the season, then they can all go wild.
22 points is the gap in the Drivers' Championship. It's coming down slowly and surely, but the debrief from this race could be a little bit interesting. Did you think what you did was fair, and did you understand Oscar's reaction to that?
I don't know what his reaction was.
Not very happy.
All right, well, I need to look at it. I've not seen it on TV yet, so I need to go and look at things. I don't want to make contact with anyone because there's just as much chance I ruin my own race and put myself out. So, you're silly if you think it's an intentional thing. especially when it's on my teammate. It's the last thing I want to, it's the thing I want to avoid the most. But and I try to, but when it's like when you're debating whether you even maybe want to start on intermediate because there's still a lot of wet patches, it's racing, like I try and keep the car under control the best way possible. There was a big gap on the left, like easily a car's width, and I put myself there. So we'll talk about it. There's nothing else I think I should have done. Any driver on the grid would have done what I did. So of course, unfortunate. I don't want those things to happen, but I think it was racing, and clearly the FIA think that as well.
Go rest up. Thank you so much.
So Norris then finishing on the podium, the final spot on that podium, and he does close the gap to Piastri, 22 points now. So we're within that amount of points that you get for a race win now. So this is positive momentum for Norris to keep that fight going all the way to Abu Dhabi, which I think as fans of the sport we all want to see. But I think it's also quite indicative of where McLaren have been this weekend, because qualifying, they weren't in the hunt for pole. So they were and have been on pace behind Mercedes and Red Bull, even though there was late pressure there.
Yeah, I think they probably both had the pace to be second and third on the road today in the race. I think George Russell was in a league of his own. Lando thinks that it would have been interesting if he'd got past Verstappen. He felt like he had quite a bit of pace reserved left in him, but with the dirty air just couldn't get past. But in ultimate qualifying pace, you're right, they were really only third and fifth best. The Mercedes looked stronger, and certainly Max looked stronger.
Piastri, though, the championship leader, finished behind his teammate. He finished in fourth. Let's hear from the Australian.
Obviously it just wasn't an ideal first lap, so I need to go back and see what exactly happened. But I don't have much more than that at this point.
I suppose the ethos all year has been exactly the same. You treat yourself both equally. You're free to race to a point. Did he cross that point today? Because it felt from your communication that he definitely did.
I don't know. I need to look at it properly. Obviously, the two cars coming into contact is never ideal. So that's all I have at the moment. But I'll have a better idea once I've seen the more angles.
But looking at the championship as a whole, driver championship, still a healthy margin between you and your teammate and Verstappen, and you've won the Constructors' Championship for the second year in a row. I know the disappointment that you're feeling personally, but as a team, that must be a really great feeling to wrap it up with so many races left.
Yeah, it's a really proud moment for everybody, again, to do it with this many races left in the season is incredibly impressive, and the car we've had this year has been nothing short of amazing. So, just very, very proud of everyone's hard work, and that's a great moment, obviously.
Piastri then sees his gap close to 22 points as we head to Austin, Texas in a couple of weeks' time, or in a week's time, I should say. The other man who we haven't spoken about really, because we didn't see a lot of him, Sam, he was away in the distance. The man who won this race, George Russell for Mercedes. I mean, it was a perfect weekend in the end for him, pole and the win.
I mean, what a weekend. On Friday evening, I thought he could have a really challenging one, because effectively, if
I say perfect weekend despite the crash he had in practice.
Yeah, exactly. Turned 16, it looked like he'd braked far too late or had an issue and damaged the front end of the car quite considerably. Didn't get back out again for FP2, and you were thinking, it's going to be a struggle here going into qualifying, but absolutely proved everybody wrong, put it on pole position, and we didn't speak about him most of the race because he was out front, completely unchallenged by anybody, doing a superb job. And I said it was one of his best laps in qualifying yesterday, and I think that might be one of his best races as well.
And surely Toto Wolff now has to put pen to paper to George Russell's contract.
It's going
requests.
to both of their drivers will re-sign. I'm saying it now.
But surely, I agree with you, but surely I think it's the finer details that Russell wants tweaked, right?
He wants less media days.
Shock. And probably less sponsorship days as well, where he has to give time to them. So surely Russell's having the best season of his career. He's fourth in the Drivers' Championship. He's in a car that can't compete consistently for race wins, certainly not in the fight for the title. He's stepped into this team leadership role with Lewis Hamilton leaving. The power's with Russell.
You would have thought so. I mean, there's nowhere else for
but
him
in the end,
to go.
yeah, where does he go?
Exactly.
If not?
He will be a Mercedes driver next year. So will Kimi Antonelli. They'll hash it out somehow, and it'll be a case of, you know, two less media days.
Couple of million more.
We're at that stage. No, I think the millions and millions is probably done. It's a case of crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
You were going to say crossing the I's, though,
I was.
Well, let's hear from the man who took an emphatic win under the lights around the streets of Singapore, George Russell.
George Russell, Singapore race winner. Congratulations. That must feel pretty special.
Yeah, it feels great, to be honest. This track's hasn't been my best friend over the years, and that's sort of been through my own doing. So I felt like I've had a bit of a point to prove this weekend, and yesterday was an amazing day. Today was so controlled, and my first stint was probably one of the best stints I've ever done in Formula One, and that made the victory.
Best race weekend then?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not going to say race weekend because, let's say, the weekend was very messy at the beginning, but when it mattered, it was extremely under control. So, you know, from Q3 onwards, without doubt, the best.
Does that prove a point to yourself that actually, when push comes to shove, you can win races and next year it's game on?
I mean, for me, I believe in myself. I know I can fight for a world championship, and every time we've had a chance of being on pole or winning the race, we've done that this year. And, you know, I feel ready. I feel consistent. I feel a stronger driver than I've ever felt before. So just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
George Russell chatting to Jenny Gao after his 5th career win in Formula One. So bagging some excellent points for the Mercedes man. He beat by, in the end, 5.4 seconds, although it felt like an awful lot more because he never really had a challenge from Max Verstappen, who was rather having to look in his mirrors more than ahead at George Russell. But Verstappen still managed to come home in second. Started on that soft tyre, which we noted. Thought he might try an aggressive early stint, get that bit of extra grip. Ultimately, he didn't really lead anywhere.
No, it didn't, but he felt like he needed to try something. With that track drying up and him starting on the dirty side of the grid, him and Red Bull obviously thought, you know what, let's throw the dice here. Let's have a go, see if we can get in front and see what happens. Nobody had done any long-run stints throughout the whole weekend. So everybody was kind of in the unknown with regards to how long tyres would last. It actually worked out that all tyres lasted pretty well, didn't they? But George was just in a league of his own out front. Max then spent the whole race looking in his mirrors at Lando Norris. Lando Norris spent the entire race in the dirty air of Max Verstappen, leaving George Russell to cruise home to victory.
Verstappen clearly wasn't comfortable, though, in that Red Bull, because at one point he nearly went in the wall. He was actually closing on Russell and then did a bit of what Norris did last year, found himself locking up, struggling to turning that Red Bull, just avoided the wall. So while Red Bull have clearly made significant steps forward since the summer break, there's still something that almost irks him. It's not quite right yet.
Well, I don't think there was something right with the downshifts. This evening in Singapore, he was complaining a lot about the type of downshift that he was getting, not to his liking, maybe a little bit clunky, which then forces a little bit more external heat through those rear tyres. Not happy with that. He said that the rear of the car was like a handbrake at times, which again is not ideal at all. I mean, you're not in a rally car here, you're in a Formula One car where you drive correctly, not sideways. I love, by the way, any rally fans, I love your sport. It's just that these formula cars, you point them and you try and be nice and smooth. You're not overcorrecting, let's put it that way. So
dig yourself out of that one.
I've dug such a hole for myself.
Carlos Sainz will be very happy with you.
No, a lot of people were making mistakes tonight, though. We saw Lewis Hamilton go deep in a couple of corners even before his braking issues. Liam Lawson nearly in the wall at turn 14 as well. Max Verstappen doing it. So I think one of the only mistake-free races was from the race winner, George Russell.
Well, let's hear from the man who continues to have Marina Bay as the only circuit on the current calendar where he has yet to take victory. It was second place, runner-up for Max Verstappen.
Well, Max Verstappen finishing P2, you clawing back even more points against Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Feeling happy?
Yeah, well,
Overall, I think it's been all right. Just I hope for a little bit of a more straightforward race, because I think too many things didn't go well. We had too many issues with the shifting and down and up shifting, and balancing the car was also a bit too difficult to manage. So it was really 62 laps of management. But nevertheless, second I think is very good. Even if, let's say, we had a lot more pacey compass around here, I would have been second regardless.
And obviously you've unlocked something in that car. We were waiting to come here to see if it was a true reflection or if it was just those last couple of tracks. It does look like you found something. Does that give you hope going forward that actually there are race wins on the card, that championship gap, 63 points I think it is now, could eke away that, couldn't you?
I think for that we need to catch up more in a race weekend. Also today I don't think you can judge the real performances, because basically Lando was just stuck behind me. He was much faster. As soon as I pitted in the first stint, he was a lot faster. And that kind of pace I would have not been able to do, so they are still very fast, and if it would have been a normal layout he would have just passed me and took off, so they are still the benchmark. We still have a few things that we need to work on. But it was already a bit better around here.
Can I just ask for your reaction about McLaren winning the title, please?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, they did an amazing job all year, so they fully deserve that title. I'm very happy for them. I mean, they've worked hard for it. They had, of course, a few years ago still, some tough seasons, and how they recovered is remarkable, and also is, I think, a lesson for everyone in this paddock that, everything is possible.
So that was the top three. Russell winning from Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Piastri just outside of the podium. Kimi Antonelli in the other Mercedes. I think he deserves a word. He's had a strong weekend so far in Singapore. Off the back of a good Baku as well. Finished in fifth. Was really hounding Leclerc for a lot of that race. Managed to get ahead of him in the end, and even managed to fend off a charging Lewis Hamilton as well, before Hamilton actually had some issues towards the end of that race. So this is Antonelli continuing to build on some good momentum.
Yeah, I think that over the last couple of race weekends he's found a little bit of form. I like the way that Mercedes, the bosses there, have worked with him, put their arms around him and made him feel like he's there for the long haul. He's a work in progress. I thought his lap 1 between turns 1 and turns 4 weren't his strongest. He let both Lando Norris and one of the Ferraris, I think it was Charles Leclerc, through at the time, and he looked like he was a little bit out of sorts, but recovered and did a decent race.
And with that, scores consecutive top 5 finishes for the first time in Formula One does Antonelli. He finished against Leclerc. Bit of a rough day for Ferrari. Hamilton finished 7th, and actually Hamilton had a late stop, had a free pit stop at the end of the Grand Prix. That he had enough of a gap behind him, put on the soft tyre, and actually Ferrari then orchestrated that Leclerc moved out of the way to let Hamilton try and have an attack on Antonelli, but then it all went a bit sour for Hamilton.
Well, it actually looked like a bit of a masterstroke from Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton coming in, taking those soft tyres. It was a free stop. He absolutely closed in so quickly on Leclerc. Leclerc jumped out of the way quickly to allow Hamilton to have a go at Antonelli. It looked like it was going to happen, and then into turn 16 with a few laps to go, you just saw a load of sparks from the inside of the rim on Hamilton's front left. It didn't look right. It definitely looks like that's a disc failure. Lewis Hamilton then didn't have any brakes for the last couple of laps. Cue Fernando Alonso, who in the end eventually finished behind Lewis Hamilton, but with a lap to go he was
4/10 he was behind.
Yeah, with a lap to go he was 40 seconds behind Lewis. Lewis was that slow on the last lap, and I don't think he adhered to any track limits over the course of the final lap, but had to miss all the corners because he didn't have any brakes. The question is, should you continue if you've got no brakes? Is that deemed dangerous? Did Lewis do the right thing? I mean, I would continue with a lap to go. If I was in the same position, I'd continue and get across the line and let the stewards decide on what they want to do. So I think that Lewis did the right thing, but I can completely see why Fernando went irate, didn't he, on his radio?
Let me just give you some context to this. Fernando Alonso actually, I think, had a gem of a race over his team radio. He came out with some absolute blinding phrases today, and it looked like it all went wrong after a really long pit stop for Fernando Alonso, but then he had some great moves, was picking his way up through the field, finished in 8th. However,
have you got the transcript?
I've got the transcript. I can't actually read it all.
Well, no, does our producer have a...
Do you have a bleep button, producer
Yes.
Paddy, that you can time or post edit? Can I actually do it? Oh, okay. Oh, this feels weird. Okay, this is Alonso after taking the checkered flag. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. I mean, I cannot believe it. One more. I cannot believe it. I've not added in any more there. That's exactly what he said. Is it safe to drive with no brakes? Then he says this should be, another one for you, P7 and you cannot drive. It may well be like if you are alone on track. I mean, now this is interesting, no respect for the red flag yesterday, referring to Hamilton. Today, free track for them. Maybe it's too much. For me, you cannot drive when the car is unsafe. Sometimes they tried to disqualify me with no mirror, and now you have no brakes and everything is fine. I doubt it. That's some pretty strong stuff.
Whew. Fernando, don't hold back.
And I really hope the bleep machine works. Otherwise, you know what, it's been an absolute pleasure to work for the BBC. And, your time
Do I
comes.
get your seat if that happens?
Yeah, everyone gets shoved up one.
Oh,
so.
No, but he's got a point. But as a racing driver, you put Fernando Alonso in Lewis's position. Fernando's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Fernando's bringing it home. I mean, that's what you do as a racing driver. You've got this automatic thing of, it's the end of the race. I can get this home. I can still score points. I've got the gap. The team would have been informing him of where Fernando was. If it was lap 5 of the race, Lewis is bringing it in to retire. But with 2 laps to go, you wanted to try and bring home some points. Let's not forget, Ferrari is still trying to challenge Mercedes for P2 in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren have won it, but if they can get second, then great.
Well, at the moment, the incident involving Hamilton is under investigation for track limits. So as we record, no penalty has yet been applied, but there may well be one coming for Hamilton, in which case everyone will be promoted. But as it stands, Hamilton 7th, Alonso 8th, Ollie Behrman 9th, Carlos Sainz in 10th. They rounded out the point scorers. And you know what? I'm actually really pleased for Ollie Behrman to pick up a couple of points. It's been a while since he's been in the points for the British rookie. Actually, no, it hasn't. I lie. It was Zandvoort. But he hasn't scored very many points. He was 19th in the Drivers' Championship coming into this race, and it's a strong result at a track he's never raced at, a demanding circuit too.
I give it a year, maybe 2 years, and he'll be in a big seat.
Really?
Fighting for wins, fighting for podiums. Yeah, he's too good to be... He's, in my opinion, been much quicker than Ocon a lot of the time. Especially in qualifying. Okay, maybe sometimes some mistakes have crept in, but he's proving that he's good enough to race at the front of this Formula One grid. He came in with such high expectations after his, late Grand Prix debut in Saudi Arabia, where Carlos Sainz could no longer race due to appendicitis. And I think that this year he's been really, really good to watch. If you look at all the rookies, I think Hadjar's been great. I think Behrman's been great. And those two have been the standout rookies for me. Even I know Antonelli has improved recently, but I wouldn't say he stood out. Behrman and Hadjar. Bortoletto at times as well. Okay, Bortoletto as well. Those three have stood out.
Well, it was 9th place for Behrman, and I think Carlos Sainz managing to recover from a double disqualification for Williams in qualifying. Sainz started right at the back and has clawed a point away for Williams, so that's a decent recovery. Hadjar finished just outside the points. Sonoda down in 12th. I mean, that's a pretty nightmare result.
Yeah, we were saying actually that this was a pod thing to speak about, weren't we? He got lapped by his teammate and by the front runners. It's only a matter of time now before he vacates that seat. It's just a matter of when, not if. Is it going to happen during the end of this season? Would they give someone like Isaac Hadjar a chance and go, look, you've got 6 races now at the big team. There's no pressure. get settled in, learn about your engineer, learn about the way that they work, learn about how to cope with the Max Verstappen car that we will build you in the future, because we're not going to build you a car, we're going to build Max Verstappen a car, and see if you can hang on to it.
But it's not going to be a Max Verstappen car next year, because it will
be.
But it's reset. Nobody knows what's going to work for them.
No, but they will... but it will be designed around how Max will want to drive it. So they'll put it on the ground for the first test, and Max will say he needs this, or we need to go in this direction to extract the most out of the car. If Isaac Hadjar is next to him, they're going to choose Max Verstappen's way of thinking.
I know, I agree with you. So, but it just continually then leads to the same possible scenario.
But that's that racing team's ethos. We build the team around what Max Verstappen needs, and let's just hope that the guy in the other car can hang on to it, and nobody's been able to.
So, I mean, I don't think so. I think Tsunoda's got the seat till the end of the year. I don't think they're going to make any changes now, because I feel like they've dug themselves a hole and they're just going to grit it.
Why would you not? I mean, they threw Lawson out after 2 races.
Yeah, but you still had a whole majority of the season now. There is a chance that, there is still a chance that Tsunoda might be able to find something in these last 6 remaining races. And look, Hadjar, let's remember, he's still a rookie, so...
But so was Albon when Albon came in.
Yeah.
So I think that we can make arguments to suggest that Tsunoda warrants to stay for the end of the year, but honestly, I almost think...
So you do a swap, you put him back down to Racing Bulls?
What... Or I'd put... they've got a young...
Lindblad
in.
So you think Tsunoda is done, basically, in Formula 1?
Well, he could get a seat elsewhere, couldn't he?
Where?
He could do. I'm not sure. Tsunoda's a great driver, but it hasn't worked at Red Bull. It just hasn't worked at all. I think that Hadjar would be good in the Red Bull.
Well, Tsunoda, no points on the board in 12th on this occasion. Stroll 13th, Albon 14th, Liam Lawson, he's the other Red Bull contracted driver under pressure, 15th. Couple of crashes this weekend as well, whilst his teammate finishes ahead of him. So the Kiwi continues to be under pressure. Colapinto 16th. Actually, all 20 drivers finished, with Borsaletto, Ocon, Gasly and Hulkenberg, the 20 of them. Now, in honour of Fernando Alonso's cracking race messages over the radio, he gave himself a trophy for Hero of the Race for his manoeuvre on Isaac Hadjar midway through the race.
I think that was more Hero of the Race for Isaac Hadjar for hugely over-defending when Isaac Hadjar only had about 70 horsepower at the time in his engine.
Either way, it's replaced driver of the day from here on out. So we are now going for our hero of the race. Sam Bird, who was your hero?
My hero of the race today, it's very simple, was the man that pretty much led it from start to finish, had a superb weekend, Mr. George Russell.
You know what? It's. I can't really say anyone else.
Well, you've got to.
But I am. Okay, I'm going to actually put Behrman as my hero of the race, not only for getting a couple of points in the Haas, but we only saw it as a replay. We didn't get it as live pictures, but he had a cracking move on the Williams down at turn 16, down the inside. I don't think anyone else made a move.
That was a huge send.
And
that's
for that,
what we would call it. As racing drivers would call it, that was a send.
For that, he gets my hero of the race. Right, that just about does it for us on our Chequered Flag podcast, Singapore edition. I think me and Andrew are going to be back next week for a Chequered Flag extra for all the latest news coming midweek at you. So have a look out for that. And then we gear up and we go again in Austin, Texas. It's another sprint race as well in the United States. So we shall see for that one. Thanks to the entire team for this weekend. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.